The endless dark of space stretched in all directions, each star a faint echo of forgotten ages. The colossal warship Eidolon emerged from shadow, its hull scarred by decades of relentless battle. Captain Eric Vaynar, a stern 38-year-old man with sharp eyes and a weathered face, stood on the forward observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. Eric said, "Maintain full alert, we approach the Starfront." The weight in his voice was the kind only years of war could forge. Commander Lyra Kale, 34, her black hair tied neatly, studied the tactical display with calculated precision. Lyra said, "Sensors show movement ahead, large mass, unknown configuration." Outside the glass, a graveyard of shattered ships drifted silently, silent witnesses to countless lost lives. The Eidolon moved like a predator, slow and deliberate. The air on the bridge felt heavy, each crew member silent, every heartbeat sensing with the ship's steady pulse. In the void, something ancient stirred. The tactical readings sharpened into view, and Lyra's brow furrowed. Lyra said, "It's not a ship. At least, not any design I've seen." Eric stepped closer, eyes fixed on the shifting hologram. Eric said, "Expand the scan. I want every detail." The projection rotated, revealing angular forms unlike any known vessel. Outside, the debris seemed to part as if pushed by unseen force. The hum of the engines deepened, a low vibration through the deck. Crew members exchanged uneasy glances, whispers barely audible over the steady pulse of machinery. The object loomed larger in the display, each rotation revealing more of its alien geometry. Eric's voice lowered, deliberate. Eric said, "Helm, plot a slow intercept. Maintain distance." The bridge air grew tense, electric, as if the void itself held its breath. The alien structure emerged from the shadows, a sprawling tangle of blackened spires and curved plates, drifting with eerie stillness. Lyra said, "It's massive, at least 5 times our length." Eric's jaw tightened. Eric said, "Weapons on standby." The crew obeyed without question, the sound of charging systems echoing faintly. Outside, a faint shimmer rippled across the object's surface, like heat distortion in space. Data streams scrolled across the captain's console, each reading more incomprehensible than the last. The Eidolon slowed, its thrusters firing in controlled bursts. Eric watched in silence, the reflection of the structure filling his gaze. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to dim. A sudden pulse of light rippled from the alien structure, bathing the bridge in a ghostly blue glow. Lyra said, "Energy spike massive." Eric's voice was sharp. Eric said, "Shields to maximum." The ship vibrated as the defensive fields flared, translucent arcs rippling over the hull. Crew members worked rapidly, their movements precise yet laced with urgency. The object's surface began to shift, panels sliding open in silent mechanical rhythm. Through the viewports, strange runes glowed faintly, their meaning lost to human knowledge. The air on the bridge grew colder, the hum of the ship's systems deepening into a low, almost primal tone. The panels of the alien structure fully retracted, revealing a hollow core lined with thousands of crystalline spines. A low resonance trembled through the Eidolon, as if the structure itself was calling. Lyra whispered, "It's alive." Eric kept his eyes locked ahead. Eric said, "All stop, prepare a probe." The stillness outside was absolute, broken only by the slow rotation of the alien behemoth. The crew's focus was absolute. No one dared to look away. The moment hung suspended in the silence between two worlds. The Eidolon's probe detached with a hiss, vanishing into the void toward the alien colossus. Its thrusters glowed faintly, a lone ember drifting toward the heart of mystery. Eric stood motionless, gaze fixed on the live feed. Lyra said, "Telemetry stable, closing in on entry point." The view on the monitors shifted to the jagged threshold of the hollow core, crystalline spines looming like frozen lightning. A faint hum seeped into the audio, low and resonant. Eric said, "Record everything. This may be the only time we see something like this." The bridge fell silent again, broken only by the quiet beeps of incoming data. Inside the alien structure, the probe's lights revealed an endless corridor of crystalline walls, each surface etched with strange fractal markings. Lyra said, "These formations, they're not natural." The feed flickered, static crawling over the image. Arik leaned closer, his reflection ghosting across the display. Arik said, "Something's interfering. Boost signal." As the static cleared, a shadow moved in the distance, slipping between the crystalline pillars. A ripple of unease passed through the crew. The silence seemed heavier here, as though sound itself feared to exist. The shadow grew clearer. A towering figure of glassy armor, faceless, moving with deliberate slowness. Lyra said, "Reading. Nothing. No heat, no life signs." Eric's voice was cold. Eric said, "Pull the probe back, now." The figure stopped, its head tilting slightly toward the camera as though aware. A sudden spike in the feed caused the image to smear into jagged lines. Then, without sound, the figure was gone. The crystalline corridor was empty once more, but the sense of being watched remained. The probe accelerated backward, its feed jittering as interference intensified. Lyra said, "We were losing control." Her voice cut off as the image erupted in a blinding blue flare. The bridge lights dimmed for an instant, and every console flickered. Eric said, "Shut it down. Kill the connection." But the probe's signal didn't terminate. Instead, the flare dissolved into a perfect sphere of light, pulsing slowly, filling the view. It felt alive, aware, and it was looking straight into them. The light sphere pulsed once more, and the feed went black. Lyra's hands hovered above her console, frozen. Eric said, "Status." A comms officer's voice was unsteady. "Probe destroyed, sir. No debris detected." The captain exhaled slowly, his eyes narrowing. Eric said, "Helm, prepare evasive maneuvers. I don't like being blind." The Eidolon's thrusters hummed louder, and the vast alien structure loomed outside like a patient predator, silent and waiting. The Eidolon maintained its distance, sensors running long methodical sweeps of the alien structure's outer shell. Streams of data scrolled endlessly on Lyra's console. Lyra said, "Energy patterns are irregular, almost like they're reacting to our scans." The science officer added, "Multiple anomalies forming along the equatorial ridges, non-random distribution." Arik stepped to the viewport, eyes fixed on the faint blue currents rippling across the alien surface. Arik said, "Keep the scans light. We don't need to startle it." Lyra replied, "Aye, Captain." Adjusting output. The debris field drifted slowly past, fragments catching the pale glow from the structure's surface. The bridge air felt heavy, each passing second stretching longer than the last. Arik's voice was low. Arik said, "Stay sharp. This still feels like the calm before something moves." The sudden shimmer off the starboard bow caught everyone's attention. Lyra's tone sharpened. Lyra said, "Gravitational distortion forming. Fast." The helm officer called out, "Vector shift required. Recommend immediate reposition." Arik said, "Do it." Hard to port. Outside, space twisted, pulling nearby debris into a spiraling vortex of pale light. The nav officer muttered, No natural phenomenon matches this signature." Lyra leaned closer to her screen. Lyra said, "Captain, the distortion's collapse rate suggests it's engineered." The vortex flared, stars warping before snapping back into place with a silent flash. Arik's voice was cool. Arik said, "Message or warning? Well, assume both until proven otherwise." Movement appeared against the alien structure's surface, sleek, angular forms detaching and gliding silently into open space. Lyra said, "Multiple contacts. Size approximately 30 meters. Configuration unknown. No thermal or engine signatures." The tactical officer replied, "Tracking 4. No. 6. Make that 8 craft, splitting into 2 wings." Arik said, Battle stations. Do not target unless they fire first. The helm adjusted course, matching the alien craft's slow approach. Lyra said, "They're flanking us. Formation is deliberate." Eric's gaze followed the shapes. Eric said, "They're escorting us, or corralling us." The silence in the bridge thickened, the tension measured in every shallow breath. The alien craft drew closer, their hulls shifting with liquid-like patterns. Lyra's console pinned. Lyra said, "Scanning beam, low-frequency penetrating shields. They're reading us inside and out." The comms officer added, picking up a harmonic tone. "Not audio, more like structural resonance." Eric said, "Maintain heading. Let's see how far they want to push this." The tone deepened, vibrating through the Eidolon's decks. One junior officer gritted his teeth. "Feels like it's in my skull, sir." Lyra glanced toward him. Lyra said, "It's not sound, it's stimulating neural response directly." Eric replied without turning. Eric said, "Then they're not just looking at the ship. They're looking at us." Without a signal, the alien craft broke formation, accelerating back toward the open core of the structure. Lyra said, "No weapons deployed. Scanning pattern complete." The tactical officer added, "Trajectory confirms. They were never here to intercept, just observe." Eric stepped back from the viewport. "Yoi," Eric said. "Then they know exactly what we are, what we carry, and what we can do. And they didn't see us as a threat, yet." Lyra's eyes stayed on the receding craft. Lyra said, "Or they saw us as exactly what they wanted to see." The structure loomed unchanged, silent, but the sense of being measured lingered like a shadow. The Eidolon held position, its outline dwarfed by the alien structure's enormity. Every sensor sweep painted a more impossible picture. Lyra said, "Multiple energy signatures are forming inside the core, location shifting. They're moving toward the perimeter." Eric stood still, hands clasped behind his back. Eric said, "Track them. Don't provoke. Weapons on standby, but no targeting." The tactical officer replied, "Aye, sir. Tracking vectors." Outside, faint streams of pale blue light began spiraling outward from the core, curling like searching tendrils into the void. Lyra studied them with growing unease. Lyra said, "Each one is scanning debris. They're moving with intent." Eric's gaze was unblinking. Eric said, "Then they're looking for something, or someone." The bridge fell into a tense quiet, only the hum of the systems breaking the silence. One tendril extended toward the Eidolon, moving slowly, but with unmistakable purpose. Lyra's console pinged repeatedly. Lyra said, "It's coming straight for us. Contact in 15 seconds. Eric's voice stayed calm. Eric said, "Hold shields steady. Let's see how it behaves." The tendril touched the ship's defensive field, and a ripple of electric light spread across the barrier. Lyra said, "Shield integrity stable. Reading. Molecular level scans. It's cataloging hull composition, shield harmonics, even thermal output." The comms officer muttered under his breath, "Feels like we're on a dissecting table." Eric's tone was sharp. Eric said, eyes forward, "Every detail matters." The tendril pulsed once, a slow rhythm like breathing, before retracting into the void. Lyra whispered, "We've been filed." Without warning, the structure's spines ignited with blinding brilliance. Lyra flinched against the glow. Lyra said, "Massive surge, origin point, entire outer shell." A wave of light expanded outward, engulfing the Eidolon. The bridge consoles flickered, screens dropping to black for 2 full seconds before restoring. Eric braced himself on the railing. Eric said, "Status report." The engineering officer replied, "No damage, but all external systems hard reset. Shields, weapons, nav, everything cycled." Lyra shook her head. Lyra said, "It just shut us down, Captain, like flipping a switch." Eric's eyes hardened. Eric said, "Message received. It knows exactly how to end us if it wants to." The crew exchanged uneasy looks, the unspoken truth settling over them. They were guests only because the structure allowed it. The blinding light faded, revealing motion in the structure's form. Massive black spires began to rotate, each locking into new alignment with mechanical precision. Lyra's brow furrowed. Lyra said, "Pattern forming." "Stand by, Captain, it's a map. These alignments match known constellations." Arik stepped forward. Arik said, "Coordinates?" The nav officer hesitated. "Uncharted, beyond mapped sectors, no human exploration records." The spires locked into place, and a faint lattice of glowing lines connected their tips, forming an exact star configuration. Lyra said, "It's showing us where to go." Arik's jaw tightened. Arik said, "Or where it wants us to go." The silence that followed was heavier than any alarm. The star map projection began to fade, but one single point remained, pulsing brighter and brighter until it was all that was left. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. Lyra said, "That's the destination." The point's pulse synced with the ship's sensor ping, a steady beat filling the bridge. The comms officer said quietly, "Feels like it's calling us." Arik stared at the glowing coordinate. Arik said, "Helm, plot a course, but keep us ready for anything. I don't trust a gift we don't understand." Lyra glanced at him. Lyra said, "You think this is a trap?" Arik replied without hesitation. Arik said, "Everything out here is a trap until proven otherwise." The alien structure's glow dimmed, leaving them alone once more, though every person on the bridge felt the weight of unseen eyes. The Eidolon's engines burned steady, casting a cold blue glow across the drifting wreckage, as the alien structure fell away behind them. Even at this distance, its silhouette loomed like a monument to something far older than humanity. Lyra said, "Course locked to target coordinates." Arik didn't look back. Arik said, "Half speed. I want our eyes wide open." The bridge lights dimmed to operational blue, and the crew worked in measured silence, each console a pool of pale light in the dark. Outside, debris spun slowly, some pieces glittering faintly as they caught the starlight, silent reminders of fleets that never came home. Hours passed without incident, the hum of the engines the only constant sound. Lyra leaned over her console, the holographic star map stretching out before her. Lyra said, "Coordinates sit deep in uncharted space. Nearest mapped lane is 2 sectors out." She zoomed in on a vast, swirling mass ahead. Nebula, dense ionized gases, unpassable without direct navigation. Arik stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Arik said, "Plot it. If that's where they're pointing us, we're going in." The nebula's image rotated slowly in the projection, its core glowing faintly as though alive. The Eidolon breached the nebula's outer veil, colors shifting across its hull in waves of violet, crimson, and deep gold. The gas clouds rolled and twisted, lit from within by arcs of electric discharge. Lyra said, "Shields holding, visibility down to 20%. The viewports filled with shifting currents of gas so thick they obscured all reference points. The stars were gone, swallowed by the storm. Static hissed faintly through the comms, an intermittent whisper with no source. Arik said, "No deviations. Stay locked on heading." A flare of lightning tore through the clouds ahead, revealing colossal shapes drifting in the haze. Lyra's console lit with proximity alerts. Lyra said, "Contacts, multiple, enormous." One shadow passed close, its surface glistening with slow-moving tendrils, each tipped with faint bioluminescent points. The reading showed no metal, no engines, no life signs, yet it moved with deliberate purpose. Arik's voice was low. Arik said, "Reduce emissions. Let's see if they ignore us." The ship dimmed, lights dropping to minimal. The creatures receded, vanishing into the depths of the nebula, as silently as they had appeared. The glow ahead brightened, a soft, steady pulse drawing them deeper. Lyra said, "Approaching central region." Arik's hands tightened on the railing. Arik said, "Full sensor sweep. I want everything before we step inside." The readings came back fractured, interference scattering the data into unreadable bursts. It was as if the nebula itself resisted being known. The pulse ahead continued, calm and unchanging, as though waiting for them. The Eidolon emerged into a hollow chamber at the nebula's heart, an impossible expanse of clear space surrounded by swirling walls of gas. At its center floated a massive ring structure, black as obsidian, its inner rim glowing with a faint, shifting light. Lyra's voice was hushed. Lyra said, "This wasn't built here. It's anchored." Eric's eyes stayed locked on it. Eric said, "All stop, begin a full spectral scan." The silence felt heavier here, as though the void itself was listening. The scan revealed impossible readings, mass shifting, energy signatures folding in on themselves. Lyra said, "It's rewriting space." The ring's glow intensified, forming a slow-moving wave across its surface. Eric's voice was controlled but tense. Eric said, "Helm, hold position. We don't move until we know what it's doing." The wave completed its circuit, and for a moment, the stars within the ring changed, showing a sky from somewhere else entirely. The alien sky within the ring flickered, showing flashes of vast cities suspended in clouds, then dark oceans lit by lightning storms. Lyra said, "It's a gateway, a controlled aperture to multiple places." Eric's gaze was unblinking. Eric said, "Then, it's a choice, and choices have consequences." The ring's glow dimmed, as though waiting for a decision. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the ring, sending ripples across the nebula's walls. The Eidolon's shields flared in response. Lyra said, "It's locking onto us." Eric's tone was steel. Eric said, "Evasive pattern delta. Keep us moving." The ring's glow shifted from pale blue to a deep ominous crimson, and the space within its center began to distort violently. The distortion expanded into a vortex, tendrils of warped light stretching outward. Alarms blared across the bridge. Lyra said, "It's pulling us in." Eric's voice cut through the chaos. Eric said, "Full reverse thrust, now." The Eidolon's engines roared, but the pull intensified, dragging them closer. The alien ring loomed larger in the viewport, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The Eidolon breached the alien ring's horizon in a burst of refracted light, the space outside melting into liquid geometry before reforming into an alien expanse. The crew braced as the ship emerged into a sky of roiling violet storm clouds, each lit from within by slow flashes of green and blue lightning. Shards of land floated in defiance of gravity, some no larger than city blocks, others stretching into jagged mountain ranges suspended in open air. Rivers of luminous silver water poured from one fragment to another, vanishing into the clouds below. Lyra's voice was hushed. Lyra said, "We're inside something, but it isn't space." Eric's eyes scanned the surreal horizon. Eric said, "Not space, not as we know it." The Eidolon drifted forward cautiously, its thrusters humming softly against a world that had no stars, only endless storm. The floating continents were etched with colossal structures of black stone, each the height of a mountain and covered in precise geometric groove. They pulsed faintly, like distant heartbeats. Lyra studied her console. Lyra said, "Gravity pockets, shifting. Atmosphere is stable, but something is maintaining it artificially." Eric's expression was measured. Eric said, "Maintain altitude, no landings." As they passed close to one of the massive spires, intricate runes ignited along its surface in sequence, tracing the Eidolon's path. It was as if the stone was awake, aware, and acknowledging their presence. Without warning, a beam of blinding light erupted from the nearest spire, enveloping the Eidolon in a lattice of shifting spectral colors. The light refracted through the bridge, scattering patterns across the crew. Lyra's readings went wild. Lyra said, "It's mapping us, every system, every life form." The sensation was invasive yet strangely calm, as though the ship itself was being read like a page. Eric didn't move. Eric said, "Let it finish. We came here for answers." The scanning lattice shifted from chaotic color to pure, steady white before collapsing into nothingness, leaving behind a faint harmonic tone that resonated in the chest more than the ears. The spire's runes flared brighter than before, and in a sudden surge, a massive holographic star map blossomed into the sky above. Unlike anything in human archives, it showed thousands of points of light connected by pulsing energy lines. The map was alive, shifting slowly as if breathing. At its center pulsed the Eidolon, a golden thread extending outward into darkness beyond the known galaxy. Lyra's voice was quiet, almost reverent. Lyra said, "It's a network, spanning realities, not just space." Eric stared at the endless web. Eric said, "Then others have walked this path before us." The implication hung heavy. Humanity was neither the first nor the only to stand here. The star map dimmed, its points fading one by one until only the single golden thread remained. It pulsed twice, then projected a final vision. An alien world bathed in twin suns, oceans of liquid crystal stretching to a jagged horizon. The image vanished, and the spire fell silent. Arik turned to the crew. "Oh," Arik said, "record everything. We leave at first opportunity." The Eidolon rose through the violet clouds, approaching the still glowing alien ring suspended high above. The hum of the gateway grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. As they crossed back into its light, the crew understood. The coordinates were not an ending, but an invitation. And somewhere out there, the next step awaited.